Hello, my name is Daniel Hawes, and today for my blog I plan to give you a little video here, a really brief description about the fictitious disorder called Munchausen syndrome. Very interesting disorder, and it deals with people faking diseases, but for what reasons? And that's what we're going to get into in the video here. So step 1, Munchausen syndrome is a fictitious disorder. What is a fictitious disorder? Well, someone who suffers from a fictitious disorder is someone who intentionally produces, feigns, or exaggerates the symptom of a disease, an illness, or another psychological condition. They do this not just for fun, but to receive medical attention. So these people wish to assume the role of a patient in order to get, food and attention, comfort, love, all the nice things you get in our wonderful healthcare system. So, as pretty easy to see that these people aren't just faking, a common cold, right? You don't get a whole lot of attention if you just are coughing. No, people that have Munchausen syndrome often go for the relatively rare diseases. They like to pretend that they have West Nile, something kind of crazy. And the reason for this is because it makes them interesting. And if you're interesting, you generally get more attention from the doctors. Now, what I think is most interesting about people with fictitious disorders is they're often known for creating very wild type lies explaining why they have this super uncommon or super rare type of disease. For example, a patient might have just been, in Africa hunting lions, and that's why they got malaria. Or a very real problem is there's actually a woman out there that continues to be a power lifter, and she says she's suffering from cancer. So every single day people are saying, wow, you're fighting this disease and you're lifting all this weight? It's really interesting how the lies start to add up just for the medical attention they're looking for. So that is a fictitious disorder, but what is Munchausen syndrome? Well, the syndrome is named very respectfully after a man named Baron von Munchausen, a fictional character written by the German writer Rudolf Erich Rasp in 1785. It's pretty cool to note that the Baron is known for his very crazy adventures, including riding a cannonball as it was blown off of a boat in a battle of Tippo. Much like the character himself, the patients suffering from Munchausen syndrome, again, often make these wild and crazy tales about why they're sick and how they got there. Munchausen syndrome is the extreme end of a fictitious disease. These people suffering from this go as far as to fake symptoms by taking drugs or causing intentional harm to themselves, as in giving themselves a staph infection just to make themselves get sick to receive the medical attention that they want from doctors and nurses. Just to reiterate, what's very different in Munchausen than other fictitious diseases is that they know for a fact that they are making up symptoms. Other fictitious diseases, as in hypochondria and other things like that, you may honestly believe you are sick. In Munchausen, you know that you are not. You are pretending to have this disease by faking these symptoms so these doctors and nurses believe you to comfort you while you're lonely. So Munchausen syndrome isn't in itself an illness or a disease, it is a syndrome. Very generally speaking, there is going to be some kind of other psychological problem or psychosis that Munchausen seems to manifest from. So if Munchausen's is a syndrome and not really a disease, how do you treat it? It is relatively tricky. Very generally speaking, there is a underlying psychological problem or disorder that you're suffering from, and Munchausen seems to manifest from this. So generally, the first and main school of thought is you must treat that first psychological disorder in order to kind of cure the Munchausen syndrome. Now, the other schools of thoughts are going to be, the behavioral therapy or the cognitive behavioral therapy, which is shown to be very effective in most of these cases. Now, a big thing about that is these are for people that tend to, cut themselves in for attention or fake dizziness or fainting spells, or even people, like I said, that have been in a restaurant and, urinated themselves to prove that they're having a stroke. Now, the most extreme cases are people that actually take cardiac medication to induce cardiac arrest. When this happens, a lot more therapy is needed, and there is no real flatline book of how to treat these cases of Munchausen syndrome. So we know that Munchausen's is important to us because it affects the healthcare system, and we also know how to treat it, kind of. Then how do you know that they actually suffer from Munchausen syndrome? That's kind of the hard part. It's kind of hard to diagnose it. Basically, a physician has to kind of just find out that you're lying to them. But what symptoms do those people actually show? So a relatively obvious symptom that someone with Munchausen's will kind of present with first is going to be a relatively extensive medical history. Obviously, if you're looking for a lot of medical attention, you gotta be in hospital a lot. Other thing with that, you're gonna have a pretty vast knowledge of a lot of the disorders and a lot of diseases that you could have, as well as those symptoms and the treatments for those symptoms. Another common symptom that you're going to see with someone that has Munchausen's is going to be kind of this willingness to go through really extensive surgeries. Now, these people are also going to be very open to ripping open their stitches from these surgeries to prolong their healing process. A little less extreme from that, you're going to see a lot of these people be requesting lots of drugs, mostly going to be like pain medications, but other things that will kind of interrupt their homeostasis, right? These things that make very easy symptoms for their doctors to see. For example, like a blood thinner or a diuretic. These things make very quick and easy problems in them that can throw another symptom for the doctor to look at to try to fix them, to try and make them better. So we have what it is, the treatments, the symptoms. Now, who is more inclined to have Munchausen syndrome? Generally males. Their earliest onset can be in the young adults. Some children can have it as a form, as I said, as attention getting, but generally 30 to 50-year-old males are the ones that presented Munchausen's the most. As much as 1% of all medical cases in hospitals are people suffering from either feigning or faking or exaggerating their symptoms with the disease. So there you have it. Munchausen's disease in a nutshell. So we know a little bit about it, how it all works, but the interesting part, in a kind of morbid way, is going to be a case study. Now, a woman in Scotland, she had it so bad, and one of the worst cases ever recorded, she was able to convince several doctors in several different countries that her stomach hurt, and hurt so bad that she needed to have surgery. 42 times. 42 different surgeries. That's a lot of scarring, a lot of medical bills, and a lot of time in the hospital. After questioning her, after finding out that she has this syndrome, she said, "It's as if something took over me. I had to be in the hospital." Kind of a tragic tale of someone suffering from this disease, and let me tell you, as interesting as it is to read about and research, it's kind of heartbreaking at the same time. Again, thank you so much for paying attention to me today, and hopefully I tried to teach you a little bit about some factitious diseases and something a little more interesting, like Munchausen's.